Egypt is a country in Africa, a name that evokes in each of us images of towering pyramids, mysterious mummies, and the legendary Nile River. It has long been a dream destination for those who love to explore ancient history and culture. However, present-day Egypt harbors many horrifying realities, such as the most brutal prison for women, where there are no toilets. Additionally, Egyptian women endure appalling injustices, including violence and unequal pay, contrasting starkly with the freedom enjoyed by women in ancient times. Join me on a journey to explore Egypt, where the past, present, and future blend together to create a colorful tapestry that will captivate you. Number 14. Al-Nada Women's Prison. Al-Nada is the most brutal prison in Egypt and worldwide because it lacks bathrooms, with prisoners using buckets as toilets. Situated in a desert location, prisoners spend most of their days without access to running water, drinking water, and even toilets. Despite being in the desert, the prison is overcrowded to the extent that a cell meant for 30 prisoners can accommodate up to 95 female prisoners, affecting ventilation and causing unpleasant odors in the cells. A female prisoner released from Al-Nada said that one had to bribe cellmates to sleep on a bunk bed and was allowed out of the cell only twice a week. Pete Farmer, 45, a British citizen, was imprisoned in this facility for 2 years before being released in November 2017. He revealed that anyone who experiences Al-Nada would never want to return to Egypt. Moreover, during the first 15 days of incarceration, relatives of prisoners are not allowed to visit. It is known that the food in Al-Nada prison is terrible, with only rice being edible. Living conditions in this hellish prison are dreadful, with diseases rampant and prisoners living among cockroaches and lice. Living conditions here are extremely poor, lacking essential supplies such as food and medicine. Furthermore, violence and torture occur frequently in prison. Prisoners are beaten, abused, and brutally treated. Many die from exhaustion, illness, or torture. Female prisoners being sexually assaulted multiple times in Al-Nada prison is a common occurrence. One could say that the life of female prisoners here is like hell on earth. What do you think about this prison? Leave your comments below. Number 13. Violence is normalized against women. Discrimination, human rights violations, and violence against women have become all too common here. On average, every 3 Egyptian women, one is beaten, coerced into sexual intercourse, or subjected to physical abuse and violation throughout their lives. Most often, the perpetrators are close relatives, so victims often do not realize they are being violated, and the perpetrators are never condemned or prosecuted. Women remain silent victims with unspoken agony in Egypt, where Islam is the predominant religion. Victims have had to suffer silently, enduring their pain alone. Additionally, due to the overly complicated legal procedures, many victims choose to overlook the offenses. The prevalence of sexual harassment against women is increasing, with reports indicating that 83% of Egyptian women face sexual harassment, and 98% of foreign women visiting Egypt also become victims. Over 62% of men admit to engaging in shameful acts and being imprisoned. Many countries, such as the UK, have warned their citizens, especially women, to be extremely cautious when walking on Egyptian streets. The reasons for their harassment are often illogical and simple, such as wearing sleeveless shirts, dresses, or even patterned outfits when out in public. Number 12. Men are allowed to have 4 wives. In Egypt, men are allowed to marry up to 4 wives. And according to regulations, if a man wants to marry multiple wives, he must ensure the well-being of each wife, from living expenses, gifts, and jewelry to having their own house. Even after divorce, the husband still has to provide full support for the ex-wife for life. In Egyptian society, men are always seen as the dominant figures, and are also the predominant workforce in professions like the judiciary, military, and police. Even in market trading, mostly men are involved. Traditional Egyptian women are mostly homemakers and caregivers for children. They have limited outings, participate less in social activities, and have little time for themselves. In this country, women rarely venture outside. It's very rare to see women on the streets, and if so, they usually travel in groups or accompanied by men, seldom alone. Mostly young female students. According to Islamic tradition, women must wear veils and dress modestly whenever appearing in public. Number 11. No handshakes with both men and women. Women in Egypt are mostly conservative and modest, adhering to Islamic principles. For women, an unidentified man should never approach an Egyptian woman, Instead, inquiries and other concerns should be addressed through another man. It's noteworthy that men and women never shake hands in Egyptian culture. A headscarf is often worn as a symbol of modesty in the lives of Egyptian women. When going outside, they often keep their arms and legs covered, especially in religious areas. In Egyptian communication, people often meet face to face, standing or sitting close to each other to converse. When greeting, it's important to address the person by their name. Egyptian names are written in Arabic, not using the Latin alphabet like English. Sometimes mispronunciations can lead to misunderstandings about their names. Egyptians are generally warm and enthusiastic, so tourists in Egypt rarely have difficulty seeking help with guidance or recommendations. Number 10. Ancient Egyptian women had power and freedom. A paradoxical fact is that, unlike modern Egyptian women, ancient Egyptian women enjoyed many legal and financial privileges in society. They could buy and sell their property, had the right to make wills, and even enter various contracts. Egyptian women usually didn't work outside the home, but if they did, they were paid equally to men. Unlike ancient Greek women who lived under the control of their husbands, ancient Egyptian women had the right to divorce and remarry. Egyptian couples even had prenuptial agreements like today's. These contracts listed all the assets and property of the woman in the marriage, and ensured that she would be compensated in case of divorce. In ancient Egyptian society, household chores and family care were always prioritized by women. However, outside society, ancient Egyptian women also participated in many fields and tasks, including those related to men's power. Ancient Egyptian women also undertook secret important tasks for the local and national communities. When taking on these tasks, female officials also had to carry seals, taking responsibility for what they stamped. This elevated the position of ancient Egyptian women to one of importance, equal to their male counterparts. Priests and clerics in ancient Egypt were highly respected, had a comfortable life, and many women took on this role. Additionally, ancient Egyptian women served as dentists, prophets, interpreters of dreams and omens for people, and even as executive directors of textile businesses. The paintings of ancient Egypt depict women supervising workers or groups with talents that could become musicians, singers, and dancers, serving entertainment individually or during public festivals. Held at public temples in ancient Egypt, there was an extremely important job almost completely dominated by women, which was brewing beer. This traditional beverage was related to the survival of ancient Egypt. Beer in ancient Egypt was used as a drink for everyone, including children, yet today, Egyptian women suffer from significant gender inequality. What do you think about this? Leave your comments below. Number 9. Ancient Egyptians often had incestuous marriages. Incestuous marriage was common in royal families from east to west in ancient times, but was usually limited to cousins marrying each other. However, in ancient Egyptian dynasties, siblings also became spouses. During the Roman rule of Egypt from 30 BC to 395 AD, sibling marriages frequently occurred among the general populace, but less so in earlier periods. Inbreeding was a common custom in the ancient Egyptian royal circles. Pharaohs often married their siblings or daughters to maintain pure bloodlines and consolidate power. There were also cases where pharaohs married their daughters. Ramses II, who ruled from around 1279 BC to 1213 BC, married Meridamone, one of his daughters. Egyptian pharaohs often had multiple wives and concubines, and incestuous marriages sometimes resulted in offspring. However, incestuous marriages also carried many negative consequences, such as increased risk of genetic diseases. Inbreeding raised the risk of offspring being born with genetic diseases such as congenital defects, mental disorders, and compromised immune systems. Research shows that children born from incestuous marriages tend to be physically weaker and more prone to illness than children born from non-related couples. Today, incestuous marriages are prohibited in most countries worldwide, including Egypt. Awareness of the health risks of incestuous marriage has been raised, and modern Egyptians often do not approve of this type of marriage. However, there are still some cases of incestuous marriage occurring in Egypt, especially in rural areas and areas with low levels of education. Number 8. Modern burial together with a dead person customs in Egypt. In addition to its mysterious pyramids and ancient tombs, Egypt also intrigues many with its peculiar, even hard-to-accept customs. One of these is the burial custom in Egypt. The tradition of living in tombs persists in modern times. When a family member passes away, the surviving members will have to move in and live in the cemetery. Each day they take care of cleaning the graves. Typically, they will reside in the cemetery for a long period, so many cemeteries in Egypt operate like family compounds. Eventually, to make the practice more convenient, Egyptians choose to build homes right in the cemetery. While tourists visiting may find it quite eerie, for the locals it's a source of comfort. In essence, this Egyptian tradition has a long history. Egyptians highly value family, and after a loved one's passing, to prevent them from feeling lonely, the living will accompany them. Since life in the cemetery presents many challenges, many bring along everyday items. Poorer cemetery areas look quite simple, while wealthier families may build homes adjacent to their graves. From afar, these places don't resemble cemeteries at all, giving off a warm feeling instead. The clustered grave sites have now become tourist attractions. Currently, many Egyptians live in cemetery areas, even forming villages. Here there are plenty of shops to cater to the living. Such cemetery villages are not uncommon in Egypt. When constructing cemeteries, Egyptians also pre-design living quarters. What are your thoughts on this custom? Please share your thoughts below. Number 7. Rich culinary tradition. Egyptian cuisine is a unique fusion of various cultures, from the Middle East, the Mediterranean to Africa, creating a distinctive and enticing culinary experience. Visitors to Egypt have the opportunity to embark on a fascinating culinary journey, exploring unique and colorful dishes. The highlight of Egyptian cuisine lies in its diversity of ingredients. Dishes are prepared from a variety of meats, fish, fruits, vegetables, grains, and distinctive spices. Some common ingredients in Egyptian cuisine include fava beans, lamb, beef, Nile tilapia, onions, garlic, bell peppers, tomatoes, rice, pita bread, and herbs such as coriander, mint, and dill. One of the most famous Egyptian dishes is kashari. It's a popular street food dish made from a unique combination of macaroni, rice, lentils, fried onions, spicy tomato sauce, and vinegar. Kashari is typically served with pita bread and a salad. Besides kashari, visitors should not miss other signature dishes such as full madams, a stew of mashed fava beans with onions, garlic, coriander, and lemon juice, usually served with pita bread and boiled eggs. Hawashi is a sandwich filled with seasoned minced lamb or beef, grilled over charcoal, and served with a salad. Omali is a sweet pudding made from bread, milk, raisins, almonds, and coconut, often served as a dessert. Egyptian cuisine is not only delicious but also rich in cultural and traditional values. Enjoying Egyptian dishes helps travelers understand more about Egyptian life and people, leaving unforgettable experiences in their journey of exploring this country. Number 6. Gender wage inequality in Egypt. Gender wage inequality in Egypt is quite high, with a ratio of 3.84, meaning men earn 4 times more than women. Compared to the GDP per capita, the World Bank emphasizes gender inequality in the Egyptian labor market, with female labor accounting for only 18% of the total workforce. According to 2022 data, there are several reasons for this phenomenon. Some major reasons include that, in Egyptian societal life, women often bear the primary responsibility for childcare. The work environment is not conducive to female labor, and has limitations regarding job availability. As a result, female labor is often paid less than their male counterparts. Gender-based wage gaps in Egypt have significant socio-economic consequences, most notably the unfair treatment in job seeking and income for women. Additionally, the illiteracy rate among Egyptian women is higher than among men, leading to limitations in educational and job opportunities. Some laws and cultural beliefs in Egypt limit women's opportunities to participate in the labor market and achieve equal wages. Number 5. 10% of Egyptians addicted to drugs. A concerning report by the National Council for Combating Drugs has revealed alarming figures. Egypt, being one of the African countries with the highest drug addiction rates, accounts for 10% of the population across all age groups, with 15.10% being school students aged 15 to 18 and 22.2% being university students aged 17 to 25. According to the Ministry of Interior, the illicit drug trade in Egypt yields nearly $1 billion. Drug trafficking is increasingly flourishing despite efforts by anti-drug forces. 85% of criminal cases are committed by drug users, especially armed murder cases. With its geographical location, Egypt is now becoming a transit country for drugs, attracting more and more drug traffickers to seek distribution networks here. Even in 2021, the country witnessed a railway accident in the Sogh area of Upper Egypt that resulted in 20 deaths, 199 injuries, and damage to 2 train carriages. The cause was attributed to the train driver and assistant using stimulants. Smoking a cigarette laced with drugs is not uncommon in Egyptian society. Drugs are smoked at weddings and users are not considered drug addicts but rather regular smokers. Drug users turn to drugs because they are seen as the only escape from the difficulties of daily life. Nowadays, drugs can be found just by taking a stroll around universities, cafes, markets, and subway stations. Cairo, Alexandria, South Sinai, Sharia, Columbia, Dulia, Minya, Giza, and Asat have become notorious locations for drug trafficking, with drugs even being delivered to homes. What do you think about this situation? Please comment below. Number 4. Egypt faces severe poverty and economic crisis. By the end of 2023, Egypt was deeply immersed in an increasingly prevalent economic crisis, with an inflation rate nearing 40% and government debt rising to 92.9% of the gross domestic product. According to official figures released by Egypt's National Statistics Authority, inflation in August 2023 had reached 39.7%, an unprecedented high, as the most populous country in the Arab world grappled with a severe economic downturn. Particularly, the prices of food and beverages, the main drivers of inflation, had surged by 71.9%. In 2024, Egypt's inflation rates stood at 3.3%, and the country had to borrow additional foreign currency to overcome the crisis. The Egyptian pound had lost over 50% of its value against the US dollar since the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine conflict in February 2022. This added further burden to millions of Egyptians as the cost of living soared. According to the World Bank, around 30% of the country's population lived below the poverty line, with another 30% teetering on the brink of poverty. Meanwhile, Egypt's government debt was projected to rise to 92.9% of GDP in 2023, the highest among middle-income countries in emerging markets. The country's external debt was also set to increase to 50.2% of GDP in 2023, the highest level recorded in over 20 years. Addressing Egypt's economic crises is a major challenge that requires collective efforts from the government, businesses, and citizens. It is hoped that with the measures being implemented, Egypt will be able to overcome this difficult phase and move towards a sustainable development future. Number 3. Egypt's population growth outpaces control measures. As the most populous country in the Arab world with around 111 million people, Egypt is struggling to control its population growth, turning it into an asset rather than a liability for the nation. Egypt's population is growing at a staggering rate, with an average annual growth rate of 2.4%. This is a pressing issue that poses many challenges for the country. The high population density could strain Egypt's already weak economy, which has officially witnessed an annual inflation rate skyrocketing to over 30% since last year, alongside a significant decrease in living standards. Additionally, population growth leads to high demand for essential resources such as food, water, housing, healthcare, education, and employment. The Egyptian government is struggling to meet the increasingly growing needs of its people due to rapid population growth. The unemployment rate in Egypt, especially among young people, is high. Unemployment can lead to social unrest and increased violent crime, theft, and murder. Around 30% of Egypt's population was poor before the COVID-19 pandemic, and this figure is believed to have increased since then. According to official figures from Cairo, up to 60% of Egypt's population is estimated to be below or near the poverty line. To curb the rapid population growth, Egypt will provide annual subsidies to women with no more than 2 children, amounting to 1,000 Egyptian pounds, equivalent to about $32. Without a strong policy to restrain excessive population growth, Egypt's population is projected to reach a record 205 million people by 2100. Number 2. Religion in Egypt. Egypt's culture places a strong emphasis on religion, with about 90% of the population being Sunni Muslims, 8% Christians, and the remaining 2% being Jews or other denominations. Egyptians value strong family bonds and always maintain a close connection with family members. Most businesses close on Friday, the Muslim holiday, while some also close on Thursday. Muslims in Egypt fast during Ramadan and are only allowed to work for 6 hours a day, although fasting during Ramadan is not mandatory. Meanwhile, Christians are not allowed to eat, drink, smoke, or chew gum in public places. Major mosques are open to tourists except during religious services, and everyone visiting mosques must remove their shoes before entering any religious building in Egypt. Number 1. Nile River Festival. The Nile River is the lifeblood of Egypt, providing water for livelihoods, agriculture, and transportation. It is also home to many diverse flora and fauna. The Nile River Festival, also known as Wafa El Nil Festival, is one of Egypt's most important traditional festivals. The festival is held annually on June 19th to honor the Nile River, the source of life for the country. The Nile River Festival dates back thousands of years, when ancient Egyptians began observing the rising water levels of the Nile River. They believed it was a sign of prosperity and abundant harvests. The festival is organized as a tribute to the Nile River, and a prayer for favorable weather for the crops. Today, the Nile River Festival is an occasion for Egyptians to enjoy singing and dancing. The streets are adorned with colorful lanterns and banners. The festival features lively activities such as boat parades on the Nile River, traditional music and dance performances, sports competitions, and traditional games. The Nile River Festival is not only an entertaining event, but also carries deep cultural significance. The festival reflects the gratitude of the Egyptian people to the Nile River, the source of life and prosperity for the country. It is also an opportunity for Egyptians to bond as a community and preserve traditional cultural values. So we have explored the prison considered to be hell on earth for women and the 15 horrifying things in Egypt. What do you think about this prison? Would you like to visit Egypt to experience it? Remember to comment and share your thoughts with me. Thank you for watching our video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to get the latest videos from us. See you in the next videos.